Morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rich Clark, Guide to the Right Path. I'm going to carry on about the essential oils, and this is again linked to the last part of Roots and Ancestry. And I'm going to talk about an essential oil called cedarwood. Now, cedarwood probably is not the one everybody talks about, but it's a fact is it's got so many multiple uses, and it's really, really a great grounding oil. So why do I like it? Well, it's an impressive range of benefits. It's got antiseptic and it's astringent. So instead of using tea tree, which can be sometimes very strong, cedarwood does the same thing, but it also grounds you as well. So it has a lot of very calming effect. It's very helpful for tones, complexions, facilities helping in infections and skin eruptions, and its uplifting aroma makes it a perfect pick-me-up, helping to release tension and lift feelings of lethargicness. So the soothing skin is anti-inflammatory, which helps for itchy, irritated skin, and especially in case of acne, dandruff, and actually for people, if they get this, it's athlete's foot, something not many people talk about, but actually cedarwood is used in athlete's foot remedies, but they don't talk about it. They'll say it's pine, but it's actually cedarwood. Relieves pain. It has a warming regenerative effect. So it's not cooling like sandalwood or patchouli, but it's used for treatment for chronic degenerative conditions such as arthritis. So someone's got arthritis, actually rubbing that on their joints is really useful. Tones and heals the skin, which I've mentioned before. One of the things a lot of people don't talk about cedarwood, it actually supports women's health. And it's very much like geranium. If you actually put geranium and cedarwood together, very, very useful. I've got a remedy with that, and I'll tell you a bit about it. I'm not going to tell the whole of the remedy. You're going to know bits of why them two work really well together. So, stimulating the effect of cedarwood can actually help regulate the menstrual cycle, and it's actually a useful antiseptic treatment for unwanted vaginal discharges. So, if anyone has any women have vaginal discharges or they have a vagina infection, cedarwood is very useful. And actually, geranium is as well, because geranium balances the hormones as well. So them two can be very good for people going through the change, going through period pains, all these things. So actually, when people understand that the use of these can work, very useful. And if you've got any issues with actual, I'll explain this as well. If people who deal with past postnatal depression or anything like that, cedarwood and geranium is really helpful. Though it actually heightens, the geranium heightens and helps with the change, but it also helps with hormonal issues. Once you're trying to calm that down, using that with frankincense and myrrh and other things, it really levels and it calms the brain down, stops the overthinking and over worrying. So it's a really useful thing, cedarwood. AIDS detox, so it actually stimulates the flow of the lymph nodes, and that also reduces water retention, aids the removal of toxins from the body. Again, very useful after you've had a child, and also when you're in pregnancy to help you level your hormones. Lifting the moods is grounding and calming. Cedarwood can combat feelings of negativity because its uplifting qualities helps treat tension of anxiety and depression and tiredness. And it's also, for men, it's considered an aphrodisiac. So again, if you're using cedarwood correctly, before pregnancy, with pregnancy and after, it's got a really good effect. So cedarwood can last all through them periods. And it's actually not the most expensive essential oil, but it's actually incredibly useful. You can use it as a hair tonic. Again, wish I had done it with no air, but room fragrance as well. If you use 3 to 4 drops in a vaporizer or diffuser, it actually lifts anxiety and depression and feelings of exhaustion. These again are very useful. So if you just learn how to do that with a bit of geranium, and you learn it with frankincense, you can ground a room, help calm the nerves down, calm all these things down. With massage oil, it's very useful if you use it with a base oil, is to make an uplifting and skin soothing massage. So actually, if you're a couple and you want to uplift someone if they're going through pregnancy, using cedarwood in a base oil. So if you said you had a base oil of 50 mils, I would recommend I'd recommend add to 12 to 18 drops. I think that's a bit too much. I would say 5 to 6, and then put a little bit of geranium, about 4 or 5, and then I would put a bit of frankincense, 2 to 3, and a bit of myrrh. That alone will help with pregnancy. And it also helps calm the body down through the stress of dealing with that. And obviously, all the other things I mentioned earlier in the video. Now, the other thing is with cedarwood is where does it come from? Well, cedarwood's got an interesting because it's now mainly manufactured in Morocco, same place where argan oil is manufactured. See, there's a lot of interlinks why that works. But however, cedarwood actually, they reckon Atlas cedarwood was actually originated from the Lebanon. cedars, which grow wild in Lebanon and on the island of Cyprus. So actually, cedarwood was actually known as one of Cyprus's main products. Obviously, that's changed through the war between Greece and Cyprus. But cedarwood also is chemically used for helping because it's a part of the pine. It's a pine, not a cypress fruit. It's not a cypress. So actually, some people say, "Oh, cedarwood's a cypress essential oil." It's not. It's actually from pine. So again, people get things mixed up, and people have an issue with pine because sometimes pine can be very reactive. Pine isn't reactive if you use the good quality of it. So cedarwood is steam distilled from the wood stumps or wood from the sawdust. So actually, cedarwood you can use a lot of the product, and most of the distillation takes place in Morocco and in Algeria. Best quality essential oil is obtained from distilling wood chips from trees that are 20 to 30 years old. Again, not young trees, always got to be older. So again, cedarwood actually it's like sandalwood. It's you have to know the ethics behind it. So with cedarwood, Atlas cedarwood, it was known and believed to be used by the ancient Egyptians for embalming purposes, cosmetics, and perfumery. Lebanon cedar was prized as a building wood. The cedar trees were mentioned in the Bible. It's symbolizing everything that was fertile and abundant. And then also Galen referred to cedar's resin being used to preserve the body from putrefaction. And so actually doctors talk about cedarwood to actually help with bronchitis. So cedarwood has actually been used for centuries, but it doesn't seem to get the regard of patchouli and sandalwood and frankincense, but it's actually on equal levels of use. The other thing as well is they've done clinical studies on cedarwood, and it's very useful for alopecia. It's useful for people where the massage blend actually helps give a significant improvement to uplifting. It's also been known with lymphatic system, which I mentioned. It's reputed to encourage lymphatic drainage and stimulate the breakdown of accumulated fats. Also, cedarwood can be used for addressing stress, anxiety, and tension, and it's been helpful for the respiratory system. Now, the one thing is with cedarwood, it is grounding and strengthening, and it's very helps with that. And Werwood describes Anne Werwood, who's she is a lady who does about spiritual essential oils, talks about that it was actually used and actually created and signed by the Royal Charter in the UK for only to be used in certain ways. So it's actually interesting that cedarwood isn't regarded so much higher as patchouli, though it's actually got a much higher regard in higher circles. So that's what I always find is interesting. So we also have to understand about cedarwood. It's also there's different types of cedarwood. There's another cedarwood called Virginia cedarwood. Now, Virginia cedarwood is created in America. That quality isn't so good, but it actually came from the original idea of actually was taken from Africa. So was that done through slavery? I don't know, but that's how they found out, and then it got to America, and then America grew it. So cedarwood's quite interesting in that respect. So what I would also say about what's good about cedarwood is it's very good for toning and tonifying the kidneys and spleen and pancreas, and it's very much helpful for lower back pain and poor concentration. So what would I recommend with cedarwood to help you? Well, I'm going to give you a bit of a remedy here because I use cedarwood in my heart chakra oil, which I make, but I'm not going to give you that recipe because that's mine, obviously. And you have to buy that from me. However, what I will do is I'll give you a little bit of a hint. So with cedarwood, if you use it with geranium and you use that within pregnancy and so forth for hormonal reasons, what you would also need to know is you need to put a floral scent with it. Now, I mentioned jasmine. Now, jasmine for some people is good, but jasmine you shouldn't use with women in pregnancy. You should only use it after pregnancy because jasmine can actually dry the placenta out. So what you would do is, this is my recommendation. When you've got cedarwood and you've got things like patchouli and you've got things like sandalwood and you've got geranium, all of these things always need a floral scent. So if you use neroli, jasmine, or even if you want to, you could use rose. I think it's a bit too strong. I personally think. I think it's a bit overwhelming. But if you use any of them, they can uplift whatever you're dealing with emotionally. And if you know you're going through an emotional time, especially after pregnancy with postnatal depression, for men, I would recommend you do this. Is you know how to create a blend for your partner. Is that you would put that in the room while they're dealing with that. And that will actually uplift a few things. So cedarwood, to me, I think it's a very good essential oil. It's just not that highly regarded in the skincare industry, though it's actually a lot bloody better than patchouli. But there you go. See, that's kind of where, with my way of guiding of essentials, I've learned all about essentials, but there's a lot of things when you actually personally use them, you look at the ethics and how things are done, you start realizing what really works for you. So, for example, I mean, I'm not a fan of lavender so much, but I know a lot of people love lavender. So you've got to kind of know where you work with your client and so forth. But I always look at the properties, I look at the spiritual context of how it's used and how you blend, because blend is important. So at the moment, I will speak to you as of after this one. I'm going to speak to you on different essential oils, and they're going to be randomly picked. But the next essential oil I'm going to talk about clove. I'm going to talk about things like jasmine. I'm going to talk about myrrh. I'm going to talk about a lot of the spiritual context of some of these things because these are really important. And I think is also, I feel there's a lot of essential oils that are just not used and not talked about, and they're actually very useful. And in fact, some of them I think should be used more commercially than the ones what we know about, because a lot of things what actually people think are high end are actually in other continents are actually very basic, and they actually don't have much use. So it's quite interesting. So until then, I shall speak to you soon.